Representative Scott Perry, who is a great leader, joins us tonight to talk about the disastrous tenure of Speaker Mike Johnson. It is hard to think of a bigger political disappointment, who isn't a Democrat, and in recent memory, than Johnson. He's proven just as bad as his predecessor and worse, and almost as bad as the precursor, which was Paul Ryan, of course. Johnson might suffer the same fate as Kevin McCarthy, if only we are so lucky. Talks of his ouster are brewing, and Scott Perry joins us here now. Thank you very much, Congressman, for being with us. Scott Perry, I just have to ask you this first. Speaker Johnson has entered a very rare club. He is loathed by most of the conference right now, best as we can determine. What is going on in your conference and with this speaker? Give us your summation, if you would.
Well, we have what's called a supplemental coming to the floor, and that's an abomination in and of itself. That should all be stopped. So this is spending. Well, it is, Lou. I mean, we're supposed to.
I'm sorry. I laugh because this abomination is brought to you by Speaker Mike Johnson.
Right. Every Congress every year seems to do this. So we're supposed to do a budget, and then that's supposed to be followed by the spending bills. And that's the spending for the year. We don't do a budget. We don't get our spending bills done on time. If that's not bad enough. And then when we actually do one of these omnibus bills or whatever, then after that, we do more spending, which is above the budget we didn't do and beyond the appropriations or the spending bills we didn't do. And that's what this is. And so this is kind of seen as one of the last trains out of the station. As you know, Mitch McConnell and the Democrats and the left in general have wanted to spend money in Ukraine. They're desperate for it. They've been desperate for it for months. And they've tried to do all kinds of things, add Israel to it to try and sweeten the deal, so to speak. They've added Taiwan to it. They've added some fake border security, so-called, to it. And they couldn't get it moved in the Senate. But unfortunately, they're not going to have to move it in the Senate because we're now going to move it in the House. And the way this has been set up is there's going to be different votes, a separate vote for, say, Israel, another separate vote for Ukraine, because the constituency for Israel funding is not the same constituency for Ukraine funding, is not the same constituency for Taiwan funding. No, by the way, we don't even mention Taiwan because that would make the Chinese mad. So we're calling the Indo-Pacific funding, but that's a whole other story. Anyhow,
I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't realize that. They changed it to just Indo-Pacific, is that it?
Indo-Pacific, because they're going to include Guam and all kinds of things so that they don't have to say Taiwan, Lou. We wouldn't want to say Taiwan because that upsets the Chinese, right? And so this bill is structured so there'll be individual votes with individual constituencies, and then when you're done, it'll all come together as one product to be sent to the Senate. And that's all designed beforehand so that everybody can say, look, I didn't vote for Ukraine. I only voted for Israel, but it passed anyhow. How could I help that? Or I didn't vote for Israel. I only wanted to vote for Ukraine. Or I only wanted to vote for Taiwan, but I had to vote for the Indo-Pacific. It's all for cover for, quite honestly, left-leaning Republicans and completely leftist Democrats. It's provided as cover. And you know what's not in any of this in the last train leaving the station? Nothing for our border. Nothing requiring people to vote in federal elections to be American citizens. Nothing for Americans who are watching fentanyl come across the border. 300 Americans a week dying from that. Nothing to deal with our people being killed out on the highway by people here illegally, or the rapes and the murders that we hear about on a weekly basis now. The robbery. Respect for America, nothing to change any of that. But heaven forbid, all these other countries, they need America's money. And oh, by the way, Lou, you get this more than most. By next month, we'll be 35 trillion in debt because 34 is not enough. We got to be 35 trillion in debt by $100 or $1 trillion every 100 days. And that's just adding to that. So that's what we have on our plate today as Republicans in the House.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for your conference. I'm going to hang my head right here, right now, in shame for the Republican conference. You've got a lily-livered coward for a leader. He's unprincipled. He is a phony. And you all are carrying him around in one of those a rickshaw of some sort. I mean, this is absurdity. This is it is just it's ineffable how stupid this moment is.
It's heartbreaking. Obviously, it's very disappointing. We heard about this yesterday morning. Of course, there was a mutiny in the conference. So then by yesterday mid-morning, we were all in the speaker's office. And those meetings went on until about midnight last night, where we offered the speaker an alternative to that. Remember, we already passed an Israel funding package last November that was paid for. And so we offered him a different solution set. Again, let's pay for some of these things. We want to help our ally in Israel. They're under assault. If we're going to provide lethal aid, not pensions aid, and not border security aid for Ukraine, but if we want to provide lethal aid, let's at least pay for it. So we offered some of that stuff last night, separate votes, not putting it all together to provide cover to everybody here. And, that's where we ended on midnight. And by this morning at, 8:30 or 9 o'clock, he's right back on the same train of when we showed up in town, the thing that caused the mutiny. So we're trying to be productive, Lou. We are, those of us who are seen as the people that can never be satisfied. I don't know why paying for the things that you're handing out seems to be an unsatisfactory position in Washington. But unless you're borrowing the money from China, the people that are getting it or voting for it don't seem to want it. And we offered some solutions, and they're of course just discarded unceremoniously. And we're right back on the train of giving every single thing that Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer wants out of a House that has a Republican majority. What do you say to that? I mean, I'm a Republican, but obviously I'll be voting against this. And what else can I do?
Well, that's an interesting question. The question is, what can you do? And right now, I'd have to say that you've got a lot of options in front of you. The reality is that you've got a fool for a speaker. You don't have control of the conference and the agenda of the United States House of Representatives, even though you have the speaker. The Republican Party is a joke right now, and led by a joke. So that gets to be alignment, at least, leadership and followers. But I have to say that I think every one of you ought to go out and campaign against every rhino in that Congress. And it isn't a complicated idea.
Well, you're right, Lou. The Civil War has begun. Those of us that are seen as the more conservative side, we didn't start it. I talked to the speaker about it in private. I talked to him in front of the conference about it. We gave him a couple more weeks. He said, look, if this is going to be a civil war, we didn't start it. We don't want to spend our time doing this. But if this is how it's going to be, we're not going to be the side that takes all the casualties. So you must know, we've decided we need better Republicans around here. And so many of us are actively playing, so to speak, in the primary process with some of our colleagues that we don't think are pulling their weight. Yeah.
Scott Perry, yep. I have to say, Congressman, you're one of the leaders of that conference and a very important voice. And for you to say that out loud in front of God and everybody, as the saying goes, is reason for hope. Because until the Republican Party produces more fighters like you and others, there are a significant number of others in the Congress that are standing up, America first, straight up, make America great again. And by the way, there is a Constitution, and let's follow it. When all else fails, read the instructions. They're right there. It's not complicated. And putting up with the pencil neck geeks over there on the Marxist dim side who are citing chapter and verse about DEI and their little broken hearts over wokeness, I think you've got a fighting chance. But first, as you're pointing out, you're going to have to fight. And thank you for doing so, Scott Perry. We appreciate it.